All right, all right, all right. Welcome to the Bendito show.
What's
This is
happening?
episode 19, and we are glad that if you're watching us live, welcome, welcome. We are happy to be back here on Monday. And Abraham, man, how you doing?
I'm doing good, man. I'm blessed, highly favored.
Blessed and highly favored. Yes, yes, yes. Listen, man, we have so many things to talk about today. Can't wait to get into it. We have a very, very special topic. We got an interesting poll that we randomly thought of, and it was, which is the best burger, man? Which is your best go-to burger? The Whopper from Burger King, right? The Big Mac from Mickey D's, or the Baconator from Wendy's, right? And I mean, for me, hands down, is the Big Mac. But I gotta say that a close second. I mean, I don't know if I can say hands down and say close second, but the Whopper is pretty close.
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, being a vegetarian, not eating meat, when I used to, this poll kind of messes
Yeah,
me
tell
up.
me,
But,
man.
I mean, when I used to eat meat, the Whopper was my favorite. And right now, the Impossible Whopper
Mm,
is is one of my favorite veggie burgers.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
say one of my favorite because KFC used to make a mean veggie burger, and they
Mm,
stopped making it because I thought
mm,
I thought it was meat in it because
yeah,
it was too good.
yeah.
But they used to call it veggie, so I used to eat it. But yeah, the Whopper for me, hands down,
Well,
not
I
even
mean,
close.
look, the Whopper is good. It's really good. Bacon in it, not so much, but I don't know. Random poll of the day. It's Monday. Everybody always says there's something weird about Mondays. It's kind of tough. But you know what? I feel like every day is kind of the same now that we're all at home and we're
Every
all
day is the
chilling.
same.
Like, it's like, you don't really know when's what. I mean, the weekend is still nice. It's still nice when Friday hits, but, there's not much that you can do. Now, listen,
That's right.
Abraham, bro, we got some special things to announce because today is episode 19, man. We've been doing it 19 times
That's
since
right.
9 to 9. Pretty crazy that we've gone on a roll. But this is basically what we consider season one, right? And every
Yeah.
season has to come to an end, right? And
Unfortunately,
so
yes.
season one has been great. It honestly has been awesome. But when does season one end, Abraham?
Well, season one ends on Thursday on episode 20, and then we're gonna
Episode 20,
come
bro. That's a
back.
big one.
Yeah, we're gonna do episode 20, finish off season one, and then we'll come back with
We'll be
season
back.
two
We'll
with a
be back.
whole
We'll be
new
back.
format. We're gonna have
Yes,
guests. We have a whole bunch of ideas that we're gonna put on display. And you
that's
know what?
right.
If you have some ideas, just let us
Mm,
know. Shoot us an
yes.
email or DM us on Instagram,
Yeah.
and then we'll put those ideas into play. We're coming back fresh. We're coming back bold in
Yes.
in
Yes. Yes.
season two.
Yeah, so we're not done. Absolutely not. I mean, I think this has been a great, great way to definitely be online community, especially now that we can't gather.
That's right.
Um, but who knows? Maybe we do the Bendito show one day in person with people.
Live, yeah, it's live with an
Live.
audience.
With
Live
like prizes and everything. Do something
with an
crazy.
audience.
Yeah, yeah.
That's right.
But yes, so season one is coming to an end. It's been great. We've done a lot of great things, but new ideas, more guests, a lot is in the work. And season two will be coming back. But listen, man, let's get to it. There's some stuff in the news. And I say we cover it. I say we cover it. Listen, I don't know if you saw
Go
Abraham,
for
but
it.
today Pascal Siakam from the Toronto Raptors, there was a video came out. He basically gave a
Yeah.
house
Yeah, he
to
bought his
his
mama
mom,
house. I saw
right?
it. I saw
And
it.
listen, I
Yeah.
just quick question, bro. If somebody said, "Listen, Abraham, here is $25 million," what's the first thing you're getting, man? What's the first thing you're buying?
I'm gonna pay my tithes, and then like for me is like I've already thought of this a million times. I'm gonna pay my
Yeah. Eh?
tithes, and then I'm gonna set up
Have
trust funds for the
have you-
kids.
have you had that
And
dream where you just find a suitcase full of money?
no, no, I'm working on stuff that I hope will bring me the money, but not the suitcase. I haven't had the dream of a suitcase,
uh,
but yeah, like it's as you get older, you don't have to think as much. Like you already have a
yeah.
plan for your life. So
Yeah.
if you get the money now, you just retire. That's
Yep.
it. But like I mean, I don't know what his contract is like, but I mean, I would think he should have already bought his mama house by now.
Yeah.
Like
Right. Long time ago. Right.
yeah, like
Yeah.
he's been playing for what 3 4 years. Like
Ooh, longer than that. Yeah.
you should have already bought your
Mm,
mama house. The first thing
mm.
you do, if you're Bob, like that's the first thing you do. You buy your mama house.
Yeah, man. I don't know, but you know what? I think I'm down that line in terms of, for sure. First thing is tithes And I don't know. I think in that ties, I'm probably thinking like, what else? Kind of church related, guy related.
Well, the
But
big question for me has always been, would I give all of it to one church?
that's an
Right?
interesting question. Yeah,
Because I
I,
grew
you
up
know,
in I grew up in one church, then I
yeah,
moved
yeah,
to another for my university years,
mm,
and now I'm in another in my adult years, right? Because I
yeah,
had to move different countries, not because I've been jumping churches.
yeah, yeah,
However, all those churches have blessed me in some kind of way. If I
yeah, for
get
sure.
$30 million, would I go 1 million, 1 million, 1 million, or would I just go 3 million? That's the big question for me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. That's good. I think I'd probably have that same thing also because I mean, the reality is that, in my family there's a whole bunch of churches
That's
in
right,
there.
churches. That's right.
And you definitely want to support, but not just the churches. I mean, you also want to support people who are, who aren't as fortunate, as us. And so I think there would be a long list of things that, I'd have to
You see,
budget
and
that
and
out.
and and that's why you're gonna go broke. That's why most
Yeah.
people who win the lottery
Yeah,
go
right?
broke again. Yeah, because they're trying to help everybody. Trying, no,
Everybody
no,
out.
no. I'm gonna pay my tithes and I'll be generous, but I'm gonna pay my tithes
Oh,
first. Then
man.
I'm gonna set up trust funds for the kids, and then I'm gonna have
Yeah.
a good chunk for me to enjoy.
Yeah.
And I'll help people. But as soon as people know you have money, like they're coming around, like I need help with this bill. I need it.
Mhm.
They might come around
Mhm.
now and thinking you ain't
Yeah.
got the money. But as soon as people think you have money, they come around. Like I saw
Yeah.
Bernie Mac, the late Bernie Mac and Charles Barkley talking about how their friends call them up and be like, dude, I need $60,000.
Mm.
Like just like that. And it's like, what? $60,000? That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money,
But
man.
because they have it, or they people think that they can do whatever they want and
Yeah.
ask for it
Yeah,
now.
yeah, yeah. Well, listen, man, did you hear about the story that kind of came out this week? Where basically there was 150 people partying in Toronto. Did you see
I
this?
didn't
This was
I didn't
on Sunday at 1:27 in the morning. Cops showed up and they
wow.
check this out. They seized $13,000 worth of alcohol in the building, and I thought wild. Like I thought this was crazy. I was
That's
like,
wild,
man,
even if there's no pandemic. Like,
yeah, right?
well, maybe
Nah, no, not nah, nah.
illegally. If there's a like if there's no pandemic, the clubs they have more money than that,
Listen,
alcohol
man,
wise.
if you weren't Christian and somebody say, "Hey, listen, we're about to turn up," at this party, but the pandemic's going on. Like, what's your thought process? You going? You reaching? Like, if you weren't Christian, like if you had no values, if you didn't care.
No, if somebody says to me right now, we're gonna do a jam session, it's gonna be 200 of us, we're gonna go worship, I'm gonna have a hard time saying no. I'm gonna
Mm,
say no, but like they say,
mm.
listen, we have an underground jam session.
Ooh,
we
ooh.
we gonna go worship, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, and we gonna jam. And all I'm gonna say is, am I gonna get a mic? Am
Hey,
I gonna get a
listen.
mic? If they say yes, I think I'm gonna be hard for me to say
Mm.
no. Like
Yeah, I
what?
mean, hey,
Like, am I gonna get to scream? I don't really have to sing, but am I gonna get to scream some stuff on the mic? If
yeah.
they say yes, it's gonna be hard for me to say no. That not to go.
Listen, somebody just told me this week, a youth leader, in our youth council at church, they say, hey, listen, we should have our, bring your own blanket kind of, meet us at a park kind of get together. But, I don't know, man. Like, I
Yeah,
don't know if that's
it,
allowed. I don't know if that's allowed, but
it's not allowed yet. But I think when the restrictions ease, I think they're gonna have to allow some of
yeah,
that stuff.
yeah, and man, speaking of that, man, it's crazy. Like you see it trending now that the restrictions, the stay-at-home order is gonna be, staying until June 2nd at least. I don't know, nothing official, but it looks like it's gonna be extended. And honestly, I mean, I hadn't read it until you told me about it. But the province wanting to be below 1,000 cases to start
Well,
opening up
that's
things.
just the chief
Wow.
medical officer. That's not the entire province. That's just him.
Oh
And
yeah,
like,
that's
I
just him saying
mean,
that. Oh, yeah,
but really, the province listens to him because he's a
yeah,
chief medical officer, right?
yeah,
But I
yeah.
don't think he's right in this case. Like
Mm.
under 1,000, that's the flu. That's what? No, we need to get things going. People are getting more vaccinated in the U.S. Dr. Fauci, the famous Dr. Fauci, is
Yeah, yeah,
already
yeah.
talking about not needing masks for in-person gathering indoors because
Wow.
people have already vaccinated.
Yeah, I think I
And
read
we
that, like,
and we're here
teenagers are
in
being
lockdown.
like, yeah,
Yeah, we're here in lockdown. They get to no.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Something's off. Something's off.
Yeah, no, it's unfortunate. Man, we talk about this every single show, and hopefully by season 2, we don't gotta talk too much about this.
Yeah.
Although I think we will have to, but yeah, man. Hey, listen, this was an interesting video, right, on Instagram. We seem to kind of come across some very interesting memes. But this was funny. I mean, it's funny, but being a youth
It's
pastor,
controversial.
I don't know. I don't know. So let's listen in what this guy has to say. So why do all youth pastors have this exact same energy?
Take a second real quick to tell you about what's coming up this Sunday at the Zone Station House. We're gonna have pizza, Jenga with the big blocks that comes up higher than normal Jenga. Don't forget to bring your pagan friends who would otherwise be out, doing drugs and having sex and kicking little kids.
Lord.
We want to show them how God parties, guys. We want to show them what it looks like to have pizza and games. And we've got a special presentation. I'm just so honored and so humbled that we will have with us former minor league baseball player Scott Scontos. He's going to be sharing about how God almost used him as a baseball player.
Almost,
guys.
Almost.
Movie guys, games guys. It's going to be amazing. Pastor Mark here. Just
Dude. All right. So tell me, how do you feel about this video? I mean,
I don't. What?
Listen, I find it funny. I find it funny.
It's funny. I thought he was gonna say, "Come and see how the Lord can do." He said, "Come and we're gonna have pizza." Like,
yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Like really, like this is everything he's promoting: the pizza, the giant Jenga,
yes,
and some dude who got almost used. So, so where is the Holy Spirit in all this? Where is the word? Where is scripture? Where is worship? I mean, it's okay for you have snacks and whatever. Usually, when I was a youth, when I was growing up, I was 16, 17. The youth services, we used to have the food, but it was after. Right, and I know here for the Timothy Club in the church,
that's
we do it before, right?
Yeah.
But usually it's after, and it's okay. Like Christians, we do food. That's what we do. But this is the only thing he's promoting. In my time, they never used to promote the food. It used to be like, come to the service or whatever. Now, whenever we got the service, you couldn't talk about the food because maybe that day there was no food, so you didn't want to feel like, oh, I'm asking for food. But usually after the service, there would be some type of snack, and if there wasn't, there would be some kind of dude selling empanadas or selling sandwiches outside of the church, and you could get your grub in. But this dude is crazy.
I gotta say, man. So Thursday nights is usually when the youth, that's when we used to get together at church pre-pandemic, and we used to have pizza, man. That pizza used to fly, man. It used to be gone so quick. I think people really tried to get there early to make sure they had their slice of pizza. Now,
That's right.
I mean, I'm gonna give them the doubt here, the benefit of the doubt, because some of them were coming from school, some of them were pretty hungry, and you know what? It made sense. You wanted to grab a slice of it. But part of this video, it is a little cringy though, because it's like this is kind of the way you see a lot of like the youth ministries kind of handled. One of the things that kind of hit me hard was when a professor told me, he's like, that youth ministries and like the ministry as a whole of youth, that is man-made. That's you guys kind of just it was kind of just us. We kind of made it. We made it. We made it what it is. And it's
but
not
every ministry. Was.
It's not to say that it's bad. It's not to say that it's bad. But it's sometimes we try to go about things just like the world would, and it's unfortunate. I'm not trying to say it's bad, or I'm not trying to say it's it's a good thing either. But I don't know. It kind of gets me thinking.
But
it's I wish this is my thing. I wish if I had to give this kind of similar announcement, I wish I could just say, yo, on Thursday we're gonna gather together, the youth, the young adults, fellowship together. Come on out, done. Done. That's it. I wish I didn't have to. And the funny thing is, we have the ping pong, we have the Jenga, we have the puzzles,
I get it, but
we have the pizza.
In his speech, he's pretty cool, he's pretty mellow. In his speech, if you replace pizza with Jesus and then Jenga with worship, you got a very good, attractive ad. And he said, bring your pagan friends, meaning it doesn't matter it doesn't matter how they are. I like that piece. Bring your pagan friends, but the reality is that
what I want to. Brother, we're going to bring in season 2? All right, we're going to bring Jonathan back. You know what? We're going to bring Jonathan back because Jonathan works in marketing, right? And I have questions. I have questions because, I wonder when is too far in marketing at church. When do we cross that? Is there a line? I don't
There
know, but
must be. There must
I would love to have a conversation as to like when do we just market, like when can we just say, this is what we're doing, right, and this is enough, and then everything else is extra, or are we being ignorant of people again that aren't Christians, I guess maybe like fully committed to Christ, and we're just trying to be attractive to them. I don't know, but I think we got to bring Jonathan
Yeah,
back for
I
that.
mean, I mean, we could bring. That's gonna be a great idea, but I
Diego
don't.
just sent me this here, and I thought it was funny because we normally do borderline sins on Mondays, but it says me, I sit on the toilet backwards when I poop so I can lay my head down, and then God says
What?
once again, really weird, but not a sin.
Sit on the toilet. Oh,
You don't get it,
but
do you? You don't get
yeah,
it,
no,
bro.
I get it, but how does it like? Oh, that's nasty.
It's just him asking, hey God, man, is this a sin? We always have that question. We're doing
That's
something. Is it a
nasty.
sin? Is it
I
not?
get it. Who
Ah,
sits
yeah,
on
yeah.
the toilet backwards though?
I don't know, man. Maybe Diego does. That's why he sent it to me. He wanted to check in. But listen, bro, today, unless you got any other news, anything else you want to talk about,
Nah, that's it. Let's get into it.
let's get into it because this one is juicy. I mean, every talk we've had is juicy. It's great. It's edifying. If this is your first time listening to the show, we are Christian. We speak things from the Christian perspective. Although we're giving our opinion, that's where we're coming from. So if
That's
you're
right.
trying to, knock us for something that we're saying, honestly, is that we're just trying to uphold, what the teachings of the Bible are. And we encourage y'all to, join in and critique and let us know and take part in this conversation. But listen, the topic of the day, I mean, this is the question, but the topic itself is kind of God and faith in the workplace. But the question is, does God approve of your job? Does
Right.
God approve of your job? And I think it is a broad question when we're just talking about where does God fit in at work, in our secular job, in our careers. Okay. Abraham, so we kind of, I mean, I'll speak personally because I mean, this is the way I describe it. I have what is called a bivocational position in the church, but
Right.
I also have a secular job, right? And I think the way that, I looked at the secular job growing up was I need money in this world. I need
Right.
to get some sort of
Right.
finances. I need finances,
Yeah, you
settled
gotta support
properly.
yourself. Yeah.
Exactly. If I really want to build a family, like, and
Right.
again, I grew up with the mentality that I want to provide for my family. I want to get
Right.
married and I want to have, I want to have the things that, that you dream of and things that you want in terms
Yeah,
of,
that's
getting a
right. And
car,
in order to do that, you gotta work.
you need money, right?
Yeah.
Now, I'll be honest, growing up, the secular, like, I really, and maybe is because, there's inclinations there to preach, and you have always this idea of maybe I'll just become this full-time pastor or stuff like that, right?
Right.
But as I kind of grew up, I realized that, the secular job, or sorry, I mean, but before, I mean, I am where I am at right now. I really just used to see the secular job as purely just for money. And at one point,
Right.
again, I studied criminology in York University. That was my undergrad, and I wanted to become a lawyer. I mean, some people still say that I should be I should be a lawyer because I debate so much.
Hmm.
But I really was thinking money. Like, okay, which path of law
Right.
is easiest and makes money? And I was
Right.
thinking, different things. I won't say a career because you know what, law in general isn't easy. But that's where I'm coming from. And then I took a change. But where are you coming from?
So my perspective is different. So my dad was a pastor, was a minister for a long time, right?
Yeah.
But he always worked secular. So he was like a senior pastor of the church. But the church model back then was not to pay the senior pastor full time. So he was a part-time pastor,
Yeah.
and he always worked outside, right? So to me, this thing about pastors being full-time employees is new,
And I was
and
gonna
it's
like, is this? Would you? I mean, is your dad still considered like Latino, or is it African? I forget how your kind of your background in
Dominican.
terms,
We're
like,
Dominican,
just,
bro. We're
yeah,
Dominican.
just pure Dominican. Yeah, I know,
Just
but along
pure
the lines
Dominican.
there, you got some mix there.
We all come from Africa, but we're Dominican.
No,
We're
listen. The
Dominican.
reason why I bring this up is because, just as a random point, sorry that I interrupted, is that this is also an issue in the Spanish kind of world
Yeah,
that,
the Latino. Well,
for
that's what
some
it is.
reason, people think that churches are, just, they don't need money. and that they don't need to pay, pastors and stuff like that. But that's literally just in the Spanish world. Just a side point.
No,
Keep going.
that's in it's in a lot of context, but in the Latino community, like we had, my father was a pastor in a Spanish church in the Virgin Islands, which is an English island, but it was a Spanish church. So, but he always worked, and it was bivocational. So this thing about pastors being all fully paid by the church is new, and
Yeah.
it's catching a little bit. Like I know in a lot
Yeah.
of the islands that's already a thing. We had a couple when I was growing up, but it wasn't the majority. And now even in the Dominican is catching a bit. I know in Puerto Rico they have some, but that's new. So everybody would know that that's like bivocational. So
Yeah.
that's the mentality that I grew up with. Now, in terms of your job, of God approving of your job, we look at it from the perspective that God approves every job that's not sinful.
Mm.
Like if people are gonna go look at it and say, well, does God approve of my job? If what you're doing is not sinful,
Yeah.
then God approves. Like I
Yeah.
don't see why God would disapprove.
The thing is here, I mean, there's a lot of weird what's the word, theologies maybe out there in terms of work needs to be related to missions, right? Work needs to
Nah,
be related to preaching the gospel, and it has to be
right.
either preacher, you have to be a pastor, you have to be a musician. And sometimes that kind of same mentality goes into even serving the church. It's like you could only be a preacher, you can only serve in the worship group, and it's just like far from it. Like there's so many other things
There's
there.
so many
Now,
other things.
I do want to bring up this scripture here in 1 Corinthians 7, 17 to 20, because I think it goes well with what you're bringing up here, where your job is something that you can absolutely do, and God can approve it, even if it's not related to the church. Okay, and so here
Of
what we
course.
see in 1 Corinthians 7, 17, it says, each of you should continue to live in
Hmm.
whatever situation the Lord has placed you. I mean, this one you really got to kind of understand the text here. It's not saying live in your sin. It's not saying keep doing
Right.
what's evil. No, but it is saying some real truths here. It says remain as you were when God first called you. Yes, this is in the
Hmm.
Bible. Okay, and it says this is my rule for all the churches. Paul speaking here. It says, for instance, a man who was circumcised before he became a believer should not try to reverse it. And the man who was uncircumcised when he became a believer should not be circumcised now. For it makes no difference whether or not a man has been circumcised. The important thing is to keep God's commandments. Okay.
Right.
And so then he says, yes, each of you should remain as you were when God called you. So when I'm reading this, Abraham, I see here that what, hey, you just came to Christ. Don't leave your job. Like it's we're going for some transformation. Absolutely, God is going to transform your life. But Paul is saying here, the important thing is to keep God's commandments. What do you have to
Right.
say about this, Amy?
And that's what I'm saying. It's that if you have a job and you
Yeah,
come to Christ, you don't have to leave your job. Now, like if your job is, a male stripper or something, then
not too bad about that.
I would suggest you leave your job. Like if your
Yeah.
job is to sell dope, right, or to sell crack or meth or whatever the popular drug is. If your job is that, you come to Christ. That's a job
Okay.
you got to
Okay.
quit right
Okay.
away. Like you
Okay.
can't
I
say
mean,
I gotta feed my family, I gotta sell this dope, or
yeah.
or I got a batch left, I need to sell it, because my dealer needs me to get him this money.
Or you
Like
just
you
want to get
gotta
rid of it. You want to get rid of the last kind of bit that you
just
have, and
yeah, no,
yeah.
you can't do that. That is
Listen,
sinful.
listen,
But
Amy.
however,
Okay.
when you accept Christ, like your transformation may not be complete. So, for example, you could try accept Christ today and then go back to the corner, go back to your spot and sell your drugs. And then somebody from the church sees you and they're like, oh, you just accepted God, but you don't know, you're new, so you just went
Yeah.
back. But I mean, there's some jobs you have to leave right away. Like right away, like a prostitute, a male or female prostitute come to Christ, they have to stop working, and then
Yeah.
God will find a way to provide. Like this, there's no, keep working, keep doing what you're doing, because
Okay.
what you're doing is sinful.
And look, I want us to hit a few points here, but we're clearly now talking about the jobs that are related to contributions of sin. I don't know. Let's try to. I want to generalize a little bit because I don't want to be so hardcore and say, well, just your typical drug dealer or something like that, or just like a prostitute or something like that. But what about working at a brewery, working at again, a factory that
Right.
is
Like a,
making
a
is making
cigar
beers.
company,
Right, right.
cigar
Yeah.
factory.
So I think that these are all dependent of many things. For example,
Right.
I don't see alcohol and cigarettes at the same level, right? And maybe we have to have a show on this, right? For me, cigarette immediately, right away, has nothing at all to do with living a proper life. Like
Okay,
it's just,
but I get it, but that the job, you're not smoking it, is the job, right? The question is the job. So you're not smoking the cigarette now. Like, so for example, let's say this: is it different if you work for them? I'm in IT, so if I work in IT at
mm,
at the tobacco companies,
yeah.
versus which tobacco companies pay really well in the IT department, really well.
Mm, mm.
But if what about if is it different if I'm in the IT department versus if I'm down in production actually working the machines that
And
pack cigarettes?
innovating the next cigarette.
Well, if you're in R&D for
Yeah, yeah.
tobacco company, you have to design cigarettes with flavors and all this other stuff. But like, I mean, if there's an accountant that works at
Mm,
a company that makes vapors,
yeah, yeah.
and this person is this can this person be saved? I mean,
Okay,
that's the
well,
question.
okay, so then the question is, I liked how you framed it there. Does God approve of your job?
I have a hard time saying no because you're an accountant. Like I, you're an accountant at a company that makes vaporizers, right?
Yeah,
If you have a choice, I would say find another job if you have a choice. But
yeah.
if you were, for example, a vape machine operator, and that's all you know how to do, that's your career. You have 20 years in, and you're an expert in that, and you get saved, you
Mm.
supposed to leave your job and stop making vape machines because you got saved? I don't think so. I don't see it that way.
So I do think that um, I want to say that it depends. I gotta say it depends because
Well, okay, what depends on
so
what?
so so for me is you know it's tricky because I think with this one we do have to, as I always say, what grace and mercy, because we have to understand that God, utilizing the
Right.
same word of God can bring convictions to people
Hmm.
at different points in their lives. But for example, a company like uh, I don't know. Actually, you know what? I see them trending in terms of actually, I don't want to mention any name, but
What do they do?
for
What do they do?
like for example, think about I don't want to
Like, just say the product. Like, mention the product in
yeah,
general.
like okay, let's just say this because in the industry now that I'm working in, okay,
Right.
I basically provide systems where companies they put all their data in there, right?
Right.
So like the company that I work for literally can work for anybody out there. It can work
Right.
for a church, it can work for a cigarette company, it can work for a pornographic company as well. Okay, and so now,
Right.
and so this is where I think like you have let's say a pornographic website that is a major brand out there,
Right.
okay, that I tell you, like if you probably mention it, you've at least heard it because they do so well. You hear about their economy and everything and their
Right.
finances of it. Would you be able to work in the accounting department of such a company? Would you be able to work in the marketing of such a company that it drives lust? It's 100% sin. It is something that is just goes against your values. I find a Christian having a hard time, having a job like that.
I wouldn't be able to do. I wouldn't be able to do it. But
You know,
this is my point. I wouldn't be able to do it at all. I don't think. I
But
don't think so. But
but imagine that the finance department of such a company has nothing to do with the product itself. Which from the companies I've worked with, A lot of times that's the case. Like finance has no idea
And
of the
that's
product.
and that's the thing. If you have no idea who you're working for, you could do that. Like if so for example, somebody is a freelance designer or something, and they
Yeah.
tell them, design this thing, but you don't know who you're doing it for. It doesn't matter. And so that's where the depends in comes for me, because if you're working in an area and you don't know anything about it, but usually if you're in finances, you would know something about it. If you're in IT, you would know something about it because you
Yes.
see stuff. But it depends. It all depends on the work. Now, I wouldn't put porn in the same category as tobacco and alcohol, and I would not even weed.
So,
I wouldn't
and
put
that's
them
the
in the
thing.
same
Like
category.
I feel like there's different categories here
Yeah,
because I
I
honestly
I think there
like
is.
I don't think tobacco and alcohol are in the same
Right,
conversation. I don't think weed is either. Especially when we're talking about medicine, like let's say the medical
right,
marijuana.
right.
Like it's a completely different category. So I feel like this is why we could spend the whole night here kind of going through a list of different kinds of jobs in terms of, well, is this one, would God approve of this one? Would God approve of this one? And so I think that we have to bring it back to, okay, how do I feel in terms of my relationship with Christ and my obedience with him and
Right.
the calling that I have to serve him, is that getting in the way? Right? I feel like that has to be something that ultimately drives us to say, you know what, this is a job that I can or cannot do. And I have a study here, that again provided from the Barna Group. I think is super super interesting, right? And so I want to go ahead and share it here. Okay. And it says American Christians are erasing the divide between sacred and secular jobs. Okay. It's a few years old. It's from 3 years ago, but it probably gives us a better context since the pandemic. But look, check this out. According to Barna, okay, 5 years ago, 1/3 of employed Christians, okay, 34%, had never even thought about whether they felt called to the work. Okay. And just to clarify, by called, they mean like, do you feel like God is telling you, like
This is
calling
what
you
you
to
want to
work?
do in
Exactly.
this place. Yeah.
So if you're working in finance, like, did you just, grow up and you like numbers and you just grew up? But,
Right, right, right.
you're saying 5 years ago, 1/3 never even thought about whether they felt called to their work. Today, that has dropped to 15%. Many Christians today feel their current employment is also well matched with their sense of calling. Three-quarters are at least somewhat satisfied with this measure of their career. Okay, so 39%. A majority of Christians workers say their unique strengths, talents, and abilities are being utilized in their present job.
Right, right,
Again, I
right.
think these are great facts. So it says here 6 in 10 working Christian adults believe they've been given certain skills and talents for use to use for God's glory or for the good of others. However, only 4 in 10 agree strongly that they are aware of these gifts, okay, and how they should be applied. And this is where I wanted to get to, bro. Only 4 in 10 agree that they are aware of the gifts that should be applied. So,
I mean,
yeah,
if every ability comes from God, so if you have the ability to do something well, right? Like I wish I had mechanical skills to like fix my car and build stuff,
yeah,
right? Like I'm very bad with my hands in that way. Like I'm not very handy to fixing stuff and doing all that stuff. I can hold my own a little bit, enough to say that I'm a dad or whatever, but it's not the best. Like
yeah,
so, but I wish I had that ability. Now, if you develop an ability and you have that ability to like be a mechanic, fix a car, let's just use that as an example,
mm,
and then you decide to become a mechanic, well then that is what God is pointing. Like God, what I'm trying to say is that God is who gives the abilities. A lot of people stray away from their ability and go do something else
yeah,
that
yeah,
they're not supposed to be doing at all. And that happens a lot in the church. Like a lot of people get into ministry just because now you can study for ministry,
yeah.
right? Before you never studied for ministry.
No,
You
no, it
were
was a
called
calling.
to ministry, then you were
Yeah,
ordained. And
yeah.
okay, you did studies, but you didn't study to
Hey, man.
become a pastor.
we
Like
I,
that's
I think we've all met, unfortunately there are people who aren't called into the ministry, and they themselves they could tell you they haven't felt any call. They're just doing it
they're just doing
because
it
it's
because
education. It's more of a
yeah,
job thing,
or because
you
they
know
they see a clear path to something, or they like to speak in public or
Yeah.
something like that. But and that happens a lot in other things too. Like if somebody just wants to become an accountant, like you said, you want to become a lawyer because a lot of money. But probably somebody who becomes a lawyer who God gave them the ability to be an accountant is going to
Yes.
be miserable as a lawyer, because
Yes.
your ability, like what you love. And there's all kinds of studies that they do to kids out of high school that show what there's this true color studies and all these studies that more or less point you ideally in a field where you will go to based on your personality and your
Oh
characteristics,
yeah, there's a whole bunch of
right?
those tests.
So a whole
Yeah,
bunch of those things.
some good
But
ones.
when God told Moses to build the tabernacle, he gave him the designer. He said, I will put wisdom for metal in this guy. I will put wisdom for cloth in that other dude. I will put wisdom for precious stones in this other person, right?
Yeah.
So he put spirit and ability in people, and Moses went and got those people, and those people did the work. And that's what I'm saying. If you are called to be a doctor, and if you find that you have the ability and you like to work with your hands inside people, or on a health level, and you have the mental ability to do it because you like reading and all that other stuff, then that's where God is leading you to go.
Yeah.
Don't try to become a pastor because you have an ability. No, your
No.
ability was for something else.
Yeah, and look, so that's where I wanted to get to. I mean, especially younger folks that may be listening live or later on. You have to test. You have to test. What you're
Yeah,
good at. You have to test your abilities. You were born with a purpose, like 100%. There is something there. And so I feel that you know for those who have the freedom to try different things, like even like I say to them in the church, like, hey, try playing an instrument, see if you like it, maybe you'll pick it up and you'll find some
yeah.
passion in there, or singing. But there's other things that you can do, like make a drama, write a script, write
There's
a
a lot of things
poem,
that people can do.
do something. And so I find that it's important for people to know what those abilities could be, even if it's one thing that you find that you have some passion to, because I think that God can use that passion that you have and those abilities, right?
Right?
But it doesn't necessarily have to be your full-time job.
No,
Okay.
it does.
So, and that's where I think we can struggle sometimes, where we are working a job. And, like, for example, I mean, I started working, let's say, at McDonald's, for a few years. It's not necessarily where I wanted to, work for my whole life. Right. But I understood that, hey, right now it's my, it's a startup job. It's something that,
Yeah,
can help me kind of get going. And so, it's kind of like the perspective that you also see with it. Like, you can't just go up to your work and be like, oh man, now you drag it, you hate it, because it's not
yeah.
something that you like doing. Because then you're also ignoring the fact that God is providing you to even begin with a job.
That's right.
Right? So
Yeah,
you see where I'm going with it. And so when we're talking about job, when we're talking about this dynamic between God helping us, approve of the job that we're doing, I think that you have to have a lot of things kind of going. If you can obviously find a job where all of your abilities and everything that you can express, obviously go for it. But in the world that we live in, the unfortunate reality is, and this is honestly one of the things that it's just one of the truths of it, is that we might not find that. You might not find the job that you're gonna feel all of your abilities being expressed, right? Like, for example, growing up, I
no,
also wanted to be a baseball player, right? And I
yeah,
I didn't make it. I didn't make it to become a
right.
baseball player, not even close, right? But what am I gonna do? Like, it's not like I'm gonna live a depressed life now because of those things,
That's right. So, and,
you
and
know?
that's important. Like it's important for you to know where you are. But the other side of it that is that too, some people have this ability, or the job
Yes.
that they do, it's in an industry where there is no money except for if something is sinful, right? There is no other money. It's like the perfect example that I know of is a lot of the musicians in the Dominican that were great musicians that used to play in the worship team and whatever, they studied music. Like, I'm talking about guys who went to the Royal Conservatory of Music in the Dominican and studied music as a 4-year career, right? In the church, they were not paid. I know that mega churches, by the way, pay their musicians and their singers really well,
Oh yeah.
like it's full-time jobs. So, but in the church, they were not paid in the church. Now, hotels and cruise ship lines would pay them top dollar for their music talent. but they were not playing Christian music at the hotel,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So, they were criticized a lot, sometimes even, taken off the church worship team because they were playing at the hotel on Christian music to feed their families, to give their family a this. So they could either choose, to go work in a factory after having a 4-year musical education, or to go work in a hotel
Yeah.
playing on Christian music.
Yeah.
That's a tough one.
Mm.
Like that's a tough one. Like in the beginning when I first heard about it, I was kind of thinking, well, no, you can't go out there and play that music.
Yeah.
You can't do that. That's a sin and whatever. But I actually went to one of the hotels with a band, right? And then I saw what they do and what they're playing, and they were explaining to me, listen, we don't we don't drink, we don't participate in it. All we're doing. One of the dudes actually took like his Bible.
Mm.
He used to go to work with his Bible, put it down. He was playing keys, and like this dude was a real Christian, but he
Mm.
was a musician, and that's the only thing he could do. So
Yeah.
how does the pastor tell him, don't feed your family with this, go work hard, go work in some construction or something, after he done went to 4 years of music? Like I just didn't agree with it. And when I saw that, I was like, you know what, I don't think God will see that as a sin and condemn
That's
you for it.
interesting. That's interesting. I mean, Romans 14:22 says, "Whatever you believe about these things, keep between yourself and God." In terms of the
Right.
conviction, and it's talking about food there. But blessed is the one who does not condemn himself by what he approves. Now, we have to keep in mind here that anything that we think is good, you need to reflect it off of what God think is good, right? And I think that when we bring it back to scripture, to bring it back of the kind of life that we ought to be living, is it pleasing unto God? I feel like we can be guided by it. Like I feel like that brother that you're
Right.
talking about there can be guided in a very unique and special way, because the thing is, we live in a broken world. We live in an evil
That's
world,
right. Yeah.
and it is tough to even find. You're not going to find a Christian job, honestly, outside of work, outside of a church. You're going to find
It's
businesses,
rare. I mean, you
like
could find a
maybe some
foundation
businesses,
like World
some
Vision or something,
yeah, like you might
but
find
that's just
some
one.
organizations that
Yeah.
have good values and probably, but maybe you'll even disagree in terms of some of the values they have, right? And so, are you not going to work for them? And I think that there are things that maybe you should work for them, maybe you shouldn't, but you have to have that relationship with God to identify those kind of things, like to
Okay. Well, now
identify whether it's good or
there's
not.
there's a big thing that I'm going to throw your way now, and I don't know if you've heard about this, but in the late '90s, early 2000s, there was this thing that P&G, Procter and Gamble, were owned by people who worship the devil, right? Illuminati or
Oh
whatever it
Lord,
was,
oh
right?
Lord.
And a lot of Christian people stopped consuming Procter and Gamble products back in the day. They probably because
You
these
know,
people own everything, right? They own everything. Procter and Gamble, they own everything in your house. If you have Tide in your house or anything related, or you like if you anything, they own everything. So and same goes for Johnson and Johnson people. Like there were
dude,
rumors or
this
that. So
happens
now,
like every year. Yeah,
would
I
you
have some
go
more
work
examples.
would you go work for a company where the owners openly worship the devil? That's the question. Now, I'm not saying Procter and Gamble does it. I'm saying would a Christian could go do it, because the owners are not even there. That's like somebody saying, because Robert Kraft had that scandal the other day with the women, I wouldn't play for the New England Patriots.
Mm.
That's the same thing. Like I don't see how it jives.
Brother, I think you're bringing up a good point, and it does throw us off. It does throw us off. You know what throws me off sometimes? When I mean, it happens like once a year. Like let's bring down Netflix because they support some crazy kind
Yeah.
of theories and values that are completely against the Bible, and they release some crazy
Right. Right.
movies.
Right.
I think 2 years ago with Starbucks.
It did.
I don't know what something happened with Starbucks. I
Starbucks
think.
was still Starbucks was different though, because Starbucks was the race thing, and I have some personal against Starbucks because of that. They locked up a black kid because he was there waiting, two black guys because they
Oh
were there
man.
waiting for somebody else.
No, but they
And
did some again.
to
Yeah.
this day, I don't go to Starbucks. I,
Wow.
I do not step inside a
Yeah.
Starbucks. And if somebody gives me a Starbucks gift card, I give it to my kids, my wife, and my daughter. They like
Yeah.
Starbucks. But I would not step foot in a Starbucks because no one has apologized for locking the two guys up. And the managers for that restaurant is still It still has the restaurant. So I
Wow.
mean, maybe nobody from Starbucks is gonna watch this, but you guys
Mm,
need to fire the manager and everybody else there.
mm.
They did it twice in about a month. One, they locked up the two dudes. The other one, they didn't let a black guy use the bathroom. And then they had this shut down
Yeah.
Starbucks for the whole day for diversity
Yeah, yeah,
training or
yeah,
something.
yeah.
I want to
Yeah,
see
yeah, yeah.
somebody needs to get fired.
Yeah. No, so you see, I feel like there's always something gonna come up. And it's
I
tough.
boycott for sure. I'm a big boycotter.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah.
And like it's tough because like we go and even when we go to a grocery store, like we don't even know who the owners are of these grocery stores, and who knows the kind of things that they think and the things that they do. And again, when I come back to scripture, like I have to try to as we've said in the past, I kind of struggle with it. Fight with the scripture, be like, God, is this something that is beneficial to
Right.
me?
If you don't know, you don't know.
Exactly. If you don't know, you don't know. But also, I feel that struggle sometimes is lacking. I feel like it's easy, and this is another point, to say yes to work on Sundays, right? Like I feel like it's
Yeah.
easy to say yes to things that take away from God's time, that take away from God's value, and I feel that, and this could be something that you can help kind of measure with you. If you're so quick to say yes to things that God opposes, if you're so quick to
Yeah.
say yes to the things that God wants you to live, and you don't care about it, then I think you're living in an extreme that ain't right. Now, if you're
Yeah.
telling me that you're struggling, like that this is something, and by struggle I don't mean like it's painful or anything like that, but I mean that you're trying to understand the text, and you're trying to live in this world
Mm.
that is broken and evil, and you're looking for God's wisdom, and you're looking for God's presence, and you're understanding that, what, I work in the hospital, or I work in this job that, I'm a firefighter and I need to work on Sundays, and I can't go to church. But you know what? When I'm home, I'm gonna connect to the service, and I'm gonna reach out to this, and I'm putting in my part. Like
Right.
it's a different take. Like it's a different
It's
kind of
different.
perspective, right? Versus, I see sometimes some up and young, some youth, where they don't even need a job, and they're the first ones to say yes to pick up a shift on Sundays, right? Like the
Yeah.
first ones to prioritize getting a little bit of money versus being there on a Thursday night with your
And that becomes a
you know
habit. Yeah.
dude, and you know what, guys? Like the book of Proverbs is there for a reason. Not everything comes to pass. What's in Proverbs, but it's wisdom. Is a lot of wise people who've been there before us, right? It's tips there
That's
that
right.
people just blatantly ignore,
Yeah,
right?
and then when something happens, they say, "Why this happened to me?" And
Yeah,
and that's the thing. If you prioritize God, you will end up with jobs that God approves. I mean, my thing with the whole problem I have is that sometimes we judge people at the church
yeah,
because of the job they have, and this person just came to Christ. Like this
yeah.
person just came to Christ. Like I mean,
That
I've known
happens.
couples that come to Christ. They live together, then they come to Christ. Not they're not married. They live together, come to Christ, but they're not ready to get married right away, and they have 2 or 3 kids. What, you gonna break up that family?
Yeah.
Like as a minister, you gonna tell that man leave his wife
Mm.
because they're not married? No, you will tell them, listen, let's try to get you guys married as soon as possible, but it's still a process. Like maybe they want to think about it.
Yeah.
Like, and in the meantime, like they don't have to be living together. And I get it. People might say, oh, that's fornication, that's insane. People don't understand that concept, but I
Yeah.
mean, i've
It
i've
is.
lived
It,
through that. Not
yeah.
me, but I've lived through it, seeing families come to the gospel, have 2 or 3 kids, or even one, or even no kids, but they've been married for a long, they've been together in common law for a very long time.
Yeah.
Now, as soon as they come to church, somebody tells them, listen, you guys can't live together no more because that's sinful. And then they say, well, we'd rather not come to the church because, I mean, I'm not going to leave my partner who I've been with, my woman who I've been with, or my man who I've been with for this amount of time. Like, they're not going to do that. So
Yeah.
that's where it comes. So, and same thing applies for the job. Somebody who is an accountant for, let's say, for tobacco company, or, let's say even for a porn company, comes to church,
Yeah.
gets saved. I can tell them go leave your job right away. The person has a family. You have to have,
Yeah.
it's a work in progress. People think, oh, Saint Peter was a saint.
Mm.
Peter was no saint. You know, when Peter talked about holiness, when he was old in the
Yeah.
first, his first letter, First Peter 1:16. But he was no saint. Peter
Nah,
was a
Jesus, I never
heathen,
said.
and God called him.
Yeah.
So I think we have to have some patience and some grace with some folks because of their job situation. That's
I,
all.
I,
That
I I love that. I love what you're saying there, because there's two sides to that. Obviously, the one side is that Abraham is not saying go do whatever you want to do. He's not saying
no.
that, right? We're not saying
If if somebody gets that from what I just said, they
yeah,
want to go do it.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. And it's the same kind of people, I think, that might say, yeah, but I need to work on this day,
yeah,
or but yeah, you know what? No, I can't do this because I have something else. But yeah, and so it's kind of like the exception always applies to them, you know.
yeah,
And so I don't think that we ought to be like Christians like that, man. I think that God is calling us to excellency, like to try to be the best that we can. Like don't try to be at the end of the pack, man. Like you know try to get to church early. Try to be one of the
yeah,
first there
yeah,
to hey, the pastor says on Thursdays or whenever at your church there's prayer time, and they're literally asking who can lead a prayer. Man, you'll raise your hand, like you'll to participate,
yeah.
right?
Lead the
And so
prayer.
I feel that sometimes we much rather kind of just be a part of the crowd. And the thing is, God is seeing us as these individual beings, and He just wants to see us be the best that we can be. And I think that sometimes it needs us, kind of getting out of our comfort zone. But bringing it back to this whole conversation with job and work. I mean, I feel like we've talked a lot about a lot of things, and I think all of us can kind of ask the question, well, does God approve of my job? And
Yeah,
you know what? I think it's a good question to ask,
yeah,
because, maybe you have been nonchalant about it. And maybe the things that you're doing at work aren't even consistent with the values. Like you could even have a good job, but God doesn't approve of it because of the way you're doing it.
that's
Right,
right.
because you're not faithful to it. You're
Yeah,
stealing from the company. You're stealing time. You're not you're not even putting kind of your best foot forward with it.
right.
And so I would love if you're watching us, man, just ask yourself the question: does God approve the job? And I think it could lead you to
I think that the
good
job is
conversation.
one thing, and the way you work is another thing, right? That's what you
Yeah,
said about stealing time and doing this. But I mean, I believe that God approves that every job that's not inherently sinful, as
yeah,
long as you're doing it. You do everything that you do, you have to do for God.
yeah.
Now, if you have a job in a bar and you get saved, I wouldn't tell anybody quit their job. I would say, you know what, let's get you transitioned so that you can find another job somewhere else, but you can't quit your job. Well, if it's like somebody who
You
has
know,
somebody else to support them, like a teenager gets saved, they live at home, they
mm,
got no bills, they got nothing, and come tell me, oh, I can't leave my job at the bar. Why
mm,
not? Right? If you say I can't leave my job at the bar because I helped my dad with the mortgage, that's a different story, right?
mm,
But if you're saying I can't leave my job at the bar because I need these shoes or whatever, and note, right now the minimum wage is like what, $14 an hour, 14.75 or something like that.
15.
$15 an hour, like
Yeah,
that's a lot of money for
that's
a
the
14
minimum
year old,
wage,
15
brother.
year old, right? The minimum wage, I mean, I'm not young, I'm not that old, I'm still young, but I'm
Yeah, yeah,
youngish.
yeah.
But like when I started working, I was 13 years old, and
Mm.
I got paid $3 an hour, $3 an hour.
Come on, bro. Don't say those kind of things, man. We're gonna start adding up, man. We're gonna know your age.
I'm not kidding. Listen, I'm not. Like I was in the Virgin Islands. I wasn't in Canada. The Virgin Islands, the
Yeah.
currency is U.S. dollars, but it was still
Mm.
$3 an hour, right? So $3 an hour, and the minimum wage. I think when I came to Canada, the minimum wage was around $8 an hour, something like that.
Yeah.
But at $15 an hour,
Mm.
that's what, like $1,600 a month if you work 8 hour days.
Nothing,
That's
bro.
good money. And if but for a 15-year-old,
It is.
that's
It
good
is.
money.
It is. No, I'm kidding.
That,
You know what? Like honestly,
that's
as I
good
compare,
money.
even when I started working, man, it is a lot. But you know what? With the economy, things are so expensive. But it
No,
is. It is
no,
good
no, no.
money, man. It is. No,
Ningún thing's so
listen.
expensive, bro. That's a lot of money.
I just try to help those younger people that I know that might be struggling. But listen, I really like as I was searching this up, John Piper.
Mm,
He writes a lot of things. I mean, he's Calvinist. We might be able
yeah,
to have differences, but I really like what he said in terms of if you're considering leaving your job and you have questions related to this. He writes in one of his blog posts, he says, whether you should leave your present job or go into vocational gospel ministry, that is something you will most likely discern wisely in a Bible saturated body of believers. And I love that. I think I love those words. And I think that's what I could encourage to everybody is, what do the people who hold you accountable also think, and how can they help you in prayer? And I think that is lacking a lot of times too. Just pray,
You
like have a
have to.
conversation with God, because I think that he will
Before
open
you
up
make
the
a
right
move, you
doors.
gotta. Before you make a move, you
And if
gotta
you've
pray.
been somebody who has been praying and those doors haven't opened yet,
Wait.
just wait, be faithful. And at the end of the day, and I know this is not the best thinking of it, but at the end of the day, we have to also come to the realization that our time here on earth is limited. It is just for a short time. And Abraham and I, we did a Spanish show earlier today where we were talking about the joy of the Lord, the joy
Yes,
that comes from the salvation of God doesn't compare to anything else in this world.
that's right.
Because you
That's
can
right.
have the best 9 to 5 job, you can have all the things in this world, but if you do not have Christ, you have nothing. What is it to gain all
The
these
entire world.
things but lose your soul? It's
Yep.
not worth it. So ask yourself some questions. I think we had some great conversations. I think we talked about some great stuff. Abraham, any last comments, man?
Yeah, if you plan to leave your job, make sure you have another one. If you have responsibilities,
Yeah.
don't leave your job without another job. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
make sure you have
Be
another
smart
one.
about it.
But if you are in an environment that is toxic and it causes you to sin, it causes you some type of temptation, pray to the Lord so that He gets you out of the environment, or that He gives you the strength in order to survive the environment, because your testimony could change the toxic environment. Your
Yeah.
presence with the Holy Spirit could change the toxic environment and help everybody out there.
Abraham,
So
you and I talk about it a lot, and maybe when we do the Bendito show live, maybe somebody will ask us, and as people kind of get to know us more,
mhm,
because again we we're involved in terms of even doing the Bendito show and ministry things, but also
yeah,
with the secular job, and in your case, I mean, you're a dad, and you have a lot more other
yeah,
responsibilities, and there's so many things there. But I think maybe one of these days we do a shows on how we balance these things, and how
yeah,
somebody reached out to me yesterday kind of asking, how can we live these godly, manly lives and be holy at the same time and happy and all these things. So more is to come. We got one more episode left in season 1. And I think that's a wrap for today, man.
yes, yeah. If you ask, you shall receive. So if you need a job that let allows you to leave work at 5 and then nobody calls you again, and then you can do some work for the church for God from 5 to 9 or whatever on a daily basis, or even once every whatever, and you don't work on Sunday, just ask the Lord. I mean,
Yeah.
I hate how people say, oh, my job requires me to work on Sundays all the time. Just ask. Like,
Just
we have
ask.
people at the church that are nurses, and we have people that work in hospitals, and they serve at the church on Sundays.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I know they have shifts on Sundays, but whenever they come, it's not they come when they can. They prioritize Sundays so
Mm.
that they can be free on the Sunday. That's
They're
what I'm saying.
intentional about it.
That's right.
So, yeah, I
Prioritize.
get it. I get it. So people are afraid to even ask their managers and stuff, and but don't be, like, honestly, don't be afraid. And I know you got to be respectful of it, and
Be
it's easier
upfront.
said than
Yeah,
done. But man, I think God
yeah,
backs
you
us
gotta
up.
do it.
When we're
God
straight
is
up
good.
and honest with
Yeah,
it.
that's right.
That's a wrap.